All right, looks like we are live. Thanks for waiting patiently, everybody, to all the viewers. Um, Antonio here with newgradoptometry.com. I am excited to be here tonight with Dr. Eric Botts of Optometric Billing Consultants, who you guys can check out at www.claimdoctor.net. Dr. Botts is a practicing OD who also happens to be a billing, coding, and credentialing expert. So he's been kind enough to take some time out of his schedule and just kind of walk us through Optometry Credentialing 101. So we'll be kind of taking it from the start to finish. And for those of you who are watching now or later, you might be in the process of looking for your first job, or maybe you're getting ready to start your next job or open up a practice. But either way, credentialing is something that you'll need to do, and it's pretty tough. So Dr. Bott's prepared to talk for us, and he'll be going through it. But please, if you have any questions at all, now's your chance to ask. So just you can type them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the talk, and I'll interrupt Dr. Botts whenever we need to. Or for some reason, if you'd rather email me the questions, you can do that as well. I'll be checking that you can email me at antonio@newgradoptometry.com, and we'll kind of see see if any questions come filtering in. So without further ado, we'll hand it over to Dr. Botts. And like I said, any questions, just feel free to interject.
Well, thank you so much, Antonio. I appreciate that introduction, and I'm really excited about sharing the information on credentialing. I actually have done this presentation a number of times at different optometry schools, and I really enjoy sharing the information with all the new graduates, because really after graduation, after you get your license, the first thing that you really have to get started on is the credentialing process. And unfortunately, it's not a simple process to do. It's time consuming. It's important that you get it right, or it can really slow you down, because some of these applications can take up to 6 months to process. And so the quicker you get it started, the quicker you get it completed, the quicker you can actually see patients and be reimbursed. So we'll get started here. I'm going to just say a couple things about OBC Billing Specialists. That's the company that really is designed to help optometrists with credentialing, submitting medical claims, education. I do a lot of different coding seminars. I really consider myself more of a coding and billing nerd. As much as you say expert, I say nerd, because honestly, there's very few of us that get excited about the coding, billing, credentialing aspect of our profession. But it's something that I do enjoy teaching. I do enjoy helping doctors with all of that. And the newest thing that has come about is the compliance aspect of what we do, as far as the HIPAA compliance, risk assessment, and auditing your claims for accuracy. So unfortunately, all of these things that we really focus on at OBC are things that you really weren't taught in optometry school. And that's why we've had so much success helping clients all over the country with all of their billing, coding, compliance issues. So let's get started here. And let's just talk about, why even get started with insurance. If it were possible to just do a cash only practice, and it is possible, then why doesn't everybody do that? Because it would obviously be so much easier if we didn't have to credential with insurances. And the reality of it is, so many of our patients have insurance, and I'll go over some slides with the actual numbers here in just a moment. But the reality of it is insurance is a huge opportunity for any healthcare provider, including us optometrists. It is what's going to fill your chair with lots of patients, because so many patients today have some kind of either health or routine vision plan. In fact, the numbers are pretty staggering. That only 8.8, a little less than 9% of the population were uninsured as of 2016. That means over 91% have some kind of insurance as far as health insurance goes. So the numbers there are huge. We're talking about millions and millions of potential patients that have insurance. And if they have insurance, they're going to want to utilize it because it's going to save the patient money in the long run. So the numbers really speak for themselves. If we get down to the two government plans like Medicare and Medicaid, the numbers there are really huge as well, with over 55 million Medicare recipients as of 2015, and over 74 million Medicaid recipients in 2015. Estimated to go up to, for Medicare, over 80 million recipients of insurance, of Medicare insurance by the year 2030. Even just today, we're at over 2,000 Medicare recipients per eye doctor. That's including optometrists and ophthalmologists in the United States. That's a lot of potential patients that you can see in your practice. If you're not seeing 2,000, then obviously you're not meeting the full potential of what you could do, and so that I think there's always more opportunity to see more Medicare patients. So how do we get started as far as building a medical model or a medical billing model of optometry? Three things that I would suggest you do. You review the Medicare allowables to establish your exam fees. And Medicare allowables are really a middle of the run exam fee schedule. So, you could easily set your fees at higher than Medicare's allowables, and a lot of doctors do. And there's plenty of insurance plans out there that will pay more than Medicare's allowables. However, there are some that are going to pay less. And there's some that are going to pay the same as Medicare's allowable. So it's a good place to get started. You can look at your exam. You can look at Medicare's allowable fee schedule to see what your potential fees could be. The next thing you want to do is treat everything your license allows, especially new grads today. All of you have a great education, a much better education than I got 26 years ago. Your education is going to allow you to start practicing medical optometry from day one. So whatever you do, don't give anything away. Don't do anything for free, and do everything that your license allows. Treat everything that your license allows you to treat. And then the last thing is you're going to have to invest in some technology. I would definitely start with a retinal camera, a dry eye clinic like Tear Lab, Inflamadry, and some means to measure tear film breakup. The keratograph is the one I use, but there's different instruments out there. I would definitely set yourself up for success with developing a dry eye clinic. And then some form of OCT in your office as well. Those are the things that I would start out with. Obviously, you're going to buy the best technology that you can afford to get. So you may not be able to get everything all at once. But if you could invest in those three things, I think the potential increase in income is easily in the $50,000 to $120,000 range. To be honest with you, just the dry eye clinic alone, when I started that about 3 years ago, it added almost $100,000 of net income, and that was after expenses. That was after buying the Inflamadry, buying the Tear Lab, buying the keratograph. The net after that was close to $100,000. So a dry eye clinic, folks, I tell you, is a great place to start building your practice. As far as those Medicare allowables go, you can go to your Medicare carrier's website, and typically you can search for the Medicare Part B fee schedule for physicians, and you can access your fee schedule at that location. And basically what you want to do is just look up the fees for the procedures that you're going to perform, your 99 office visits, your 92 office visits, and any procedures that you are going to perform is what you can look up at on the Medicare allowable fee schedule.
And do you know if we can find that on just the Medicare website? Is there a...
You can, for example, I gave you NGS's Medicare website here, so you can find it here easy enough. But I'll tell you what, I'll also give you an even easier access to it. If you want to email me your name and your location where you practice, specifically your zip code, I'll actually send it to you. So you can either email me at drvision@claimdoctor.net, or you can email Kenny Meyer at kmeyer@claimdoctor.net. You email either one of us. You tell us that you saw this presentation on New Grad for Optometry, and ask for your allowable, and I'll send it to you. And that's for the price of free. Because I want you to be successful, and this is a good starting point for you. So you can get that from me if you'd like, or you can go to your Medicare carrier.
Great. Are you going through any of the slides, Dr. Botts, yet?
I am. Are they not?
They're not. Yeah, I don't see them progressing through.
Okay. Well. There we go.
There we go. Now we got them. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No problem. We're good now.
Okay. So here is the website for NGS Medicare. But
there we go.
There's 15 different carriers out there, and so it would depend on what state you practice in. You can go to your specific carrier and look it up, or you can go, like I said, you can send me an email and I can email it back to you. So now you have to decide, before you do any credentialing, how are you going to set up your business? Because it's extremely important to be consistent from the beginning. So a couple things. I would suggest you decide on whether or not you're going to be a sole proprietorship or you're going to be a corporation before you start any of the credentialing process. You may want to consult with a lawyer and an accountant. Those are two people that I would encourage you, as soon as you graduate from optometry school and you've got set your sights on a location or a practice, to get yourself set up with a lawyer and accountant. And they can help you decide which is the best way to go. But I would strongly encourage you to look at developing a corporation. Even if you think you're going to practice by yourself for the rest of your career, if you ever wanted to bring somebody into your practice or to help you in your practice, you would then have to set up a corporation or a group practice, and you would have to re-credential everything. If you change your position from being a sole proprietor to a corporation. So I would just tell you, you can make it life easier on for you if you initially set up a corporation to begin with. But once again, talk to a lawyer. I'm not providing you legal assistance here, but I think it would definitely be in your best interest to look strongly at that option. So to begin the credentialing process, the first thing you got to do, obviously, is get your state license. Before you can get your state license, you need to graduate from optometry school. You need to get your degree. Once you get your degree, you start applying for the license. Typically takes anywhere from maybe several weeks to maybe a couple months to get your license. And then as soon as you get your license, you can set up your NPI numbers. The first thing you want to do is get an individual NPI number. Very easy to do. The website there at nppes.cms.hhs.gov. Easy to go in. You can have an NPI number easily within a day. Same thing goes with applying for a tax ID number at the www.federaltaxid.us. You can have a tax ID number in 24 to 48 hours with no problem. And then immediately I would encourage you, if you are going to incorporate into a group, go ahead and get a group NPI number as soon as you get your tax ID number. And then you've got the hard stuff behind you, the important hard stuff behind you. Next, when you start the application process, this is the information you're going to need, specifically for Medicare, but you may need the same information for other carriers as well. You're going to need your NPI number, social security number, name of your optometry school and the year you graduated, your optometric license number and what state it's in, your legal business name. So it's important that you establish that legal business name before you get your tax ID number, because whatever you submit for your tax ID number, it needs to be the legal business name that you're going to utilize going forward for the credentialing process as well. And then your incorporation date and state where you're incorporated. You're going to get a form when you register your corporation information. When you register your tax ID number, you're going to get a form back on that. Save that form, put it someplace safe, make copies of it. You're going to need that form over and over again when you get your tax ID number or when you incorporate. So save that information. And then any international students, keep in mind that whatever name is on your Social Security card, that is what you're going to use for your application process. So keep that in mind. A couple optional things that you would want to apply for, not absolutely necessary, but I do recommend it. That's a state controlled substance license and a DEA certificate. And these are what's going to allow you to write prescriptions for controlled substances. Even though you may not write these prescriptions, you still want the numbers because some insurance carriers may require it for you to be on their medical plans. And so I know there's an expense involved. The DA certificate, I think it was between $700 and $800. So I realize there's expense involved, but without it, you may be limited on some of the medical plans that you want to apply for. You may not be able to get on. So there's multiple Medicare applications that you're going to need to go through. If you're a one owner, you're going to have to fill out the 855I. If you have multiple owners for a practice, every single individual doctor is going to have to fill out an 855I application. Okay. Then in addition to that, you're also going to have to, if you're going to have a multiple owner practice, you're going to have to fill out the 855B for a corporation. And then if you're going to have doctors employed within the practice, or multiple doctors within the practice receiving reimbursement, you're also going to have to do the 855R, and that will allow you to reassign benefits to the corporation or to one primary doctor, however you decide to do it. So if you have a multiple owner practice, obviously there's more work involved. If you're going to be a single owner practice, then the 855I may be all you have to do. However, as I encouraged earlier, if you're going to only be a single owner, I would still encourage you to incorporate from the beginning. So that way, if you change your plans and decide to add a doctor at some point in the future, it's easy to do. So if that's the case, you're going to fill out the 855I and the 855B applications for Medicare. Now, I strongly encourage everybody to be a participating provider when you are a Medicare provider. And this just means that you're going to submit a claim for every Medicare patient you see, and you're going to wait for reimbursement from Medicare for the 80% that Medicare will pay on. And for the 20% that the secondary insurance covers, you probably wait for that as well. Or if the patient doesn't have secondary insurance, then you can collect the 20% from the patient the day of. But that 20% is the only thing you would collect as a participating provider. Now, a non-participating provider requires that you still submit a claim. However, if you're not accepting assignment, you can collect reimbursement from the patient the day of the exam. A participating provider is going to receive 5% more from Medicare than a non-participating provider, but that's not the most important reason to become a participating provider. The most important reason is because patients do not want to pay out of pocket any more than they have to. And so many doctors are participating providers that your patient is going to be smart and savvy enough to find a doctor who's going to be a participating provider so that they only have to pay a minimal amount, like for the refraction or potentially the 20% if they don't have secondary insurance, but they don't have to pay the 80% that Medicare's going to reimburse. And patients are going to appreciate that. And there's no better way to build a Medicare practice than to be a participating provider accepting assignment. Now, another form you have to fill out is the EFT agreement. And this is what allows automatic deposit of reimbursement checks into your bank account. And this is absolutely the most efficient way to be reimbursed, because this way you don't have to worry about waiting for a paper check to arrive and then getting it to the bank with a deposit slip. And this, with the EFT agreement in place, the reimbursement goes right into your account automatically the day that they are going to pay you. The check shows up in your bank account. The only thing I would tell you is that once you set this up, make sure you're checking your account initially to make sure the reimbursement is going into your account. I have seen some times where everything you think is set up correctly, and the payments are not going directly into your account. Easy to fix, and really the preferred way to go. Now, when you set up your checking account, make sure that your checking account is the same. The name on your checking account is the same name as what you submitted to get your tax ID number. That is extremely important to do when you're setting up that checking account. Because the EFT agreement will rely on the fact that checking account with the tax ID number is connected to the corporation or the doctor's tax ID number. So when should you apply for Medicare? I would tell you to do it as soon as you possibly can, but I would also warn you, don't do it too soon. Okay. There's no reason to submit an application to Medicare until you actually have a location where you'll be practicing with a physical address. Okay. Once you have a physical address for the location you're going to be practicing in, then you can start the application process. But I will warn you that, for example, if you were starting cold and you were building a new office, you actually have to have that physical location before you want to start the process. Because I've actually had a couple of doctors who have started the application process with the knowing that they were going to start construction on a new office, and prior to the construction of the building, the application process was submitted, and Medicare does a good job of confirming your location. That's why it takes a little bit of time for the application to go through, and the applications were actually denied because when they Google mapped the location, it was still a lot, a bare lot with no building on it, and they would not process the application until the building was in place. So there's no reason to start the application process until you have a physical location ready to go. Now, when can you start seeing Medicare patients? Well, the nice thing about Medicare is a start date will be established when you submit your application. So you can actually start seeing patients on the date that you submit on your application as your start date. Okay. Now you can't bill for those patients until your application is approved. But Medicare is one of the few insurances that will allow you to backdate your claims. Now, for those of you who are starting out in a new practice, you may be negotiating with your doctor now on what your reimbursement is going to be, what your pay is going to be. And you might find that some doctors are not willing to pay you the full amount the first few months that you're going to be seeing patients. And part of that is going to be because you're not going to get reimbursed for insurance patients until your applications are actually processed and go through. And so it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months for some of these insurance carriers to actually start reimbursing on the patients you're seeing. So accept the fact that your doctor who is you're negotiating with to start working with them, they may already realize that you're not going to be able to be productive as far as income goes from day one. You can definitely be productive for cash pay patients, but for insurance patients, you're not going to get reimbursed for a little bit until the applications go through. So that's going to be part of your negotiation with whoever you're going to work with. So are there other insurance companies that will allow you to backdate your claims? Very few, unfortunately. But there are some Medicaid that will allow you to do that. There are some commercial insurance companies that will allow you to do that, like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna. But each one of those can have their own policy on this. So you need to check with them when you're doing the application process to find out whether or not they will backdate claims. The one thing that you can pretty much bank on is that vision plans typically will not allow you to backdate claims. So vision plans are a lot more particular. You're going to have to wait until the application process goes through before you can submit claims with your name on it. Now, what else is there besides Medicare? Well, there's lots of other carriers out there, commercial carriers like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, Aetna, things like that. When you're ready to submit applications for those other insurance carriers besides Medicare, you're also going to want to start a CAQH application. And the CAQH application is a universal credentialing service that will be utilized by most of the commercial carriers, like Blue Cross Blue Shield and Cigna, Aetna, things like that. And what's nice about it is their application process is much shorter because so much of the information that CAQH is going to collect from you is going to be utilized by all of these other insurance plans. So whereas the Medicare application, if you're a single doctor, sole proprietor submitting an application, it's a little over 30 pages long, which is a lot of paperwork to fill out. a Blue Cross Blue Shield or any of these other insurance panels that are using CAQH may have a 2 to 5 page application process. And that's because the CAQH will share so much of the information with those other carriers. And so the CAQH application is much more time consuming and is one that you're going to have to update every year and make sure that all the information in your CAQH application is correct and updated from year to year. You can initiate that application yourself, but first you have to submit an application to a commercial carrier. Once you do that, then you'll be allowed to submit your CAQH application. So for those of you that are already Medicare providers, you may or may not have gone through the revalidation process. I suspect that we're going to have to revalidate every few years with Medicare. And that just means, unfortunately, you have to resubmit a new application, the 855I, and all supporting documentation and an EFT agreement. You don't have to do the 460 participation agreement every single time you revalidate. So it's a little shorter, but not much. And I would tell you, if you get a letter from your Medicare carrier saying it's time to revalidate, I highly encourage you to do that within 60 days of receiving that request so that you don't have any claims denied because you don't have your revalidation updated in a timely manner.
Couple of quick questions.
Sure.
A couple just popped in here. One question was in regards to tax IDs. Does everybody need to apply for a tax ID? That I think you'd mentioned that's only, you could use your social security number, but tax ID is probably the way to go, right?
Tax ID is definitely preferable. I would not encourage anybody to use their social security number on any application that you're going to put out there into play with any of these, whether it be your tax ID number, whether it be an application, whether it be a W-9, anything. I would strongly encourage that you set up a tax ID number for yourself. Now, as far as submitting claims go, there's only going to be one tax ID number associated with an insurance claim. And if you're a member of a group practice, it will be the federal tax ID number that's associated with the group practice. That's what will go on each claim that's submitted, along with your NPI number for the individual doctor that's providing the care. And then if you have a group NPI number, that would also go on the claim. Everybody can have their own tax ID number, but only one tax ID number will be used for insurance claims, and that'll be the one associated with the practice. Unless you are an individual sole proprietor, and then you would have your tax ID number for yourself, and that's the only one that you would use.
Perfect. Quick question on group NPI numbers. Do you need to apply for a group NPI number if the place you're working has a group NPI number?
No, if the place you're working at already is a group, and honestly, if you're going to work for somebody else, it absolutely has to be set up as a group practice. Okay, a group practice means more than one doctor. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have one more doctor to set up a group. Okay, you can have one individual doctor set up an individual NPI number and a group NPI number. But if you're going to work with somebody, then obviously there's going to be more than one doctor there. They're already going to have a group NPI number set up. You're going to submit an application for whatever insurances you want to submit claims to, and then they're going to do an addendum to their group application to include your information into their group application to whatever insurances you're going to join them with. So, so you as an individual joining a practice will not have a group NPI number. The group NPI number will already be established with the practice.
Got it. And last question here. Do you need to apply for an EFT Agreement 588 if you're working for a company?
If you're working for a company, chances are you're going to do the application that allows your reimbursement to go to the group practice, and then they will pay you however you work out the reimbursement to be. But all reimbursements for a practice will typically go to one location, and then reimbursed or separated out there and then divided amongst the doctors. So you chances are, if you're going to work for somebody, they're going to take care of all that for you. You're just going to have to do the application process. If they're not doing it for you, then or they're not outsourcing it to somebody to do it for you, and you have to do it yourself, then you'll have to do an individual application, and then have it added to the group practice.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I appreciate the fact that all of this can absolutely be overwhelming. There's a lot to it, and none of it was taught to you when you were in optometry school. And the reason being is what I've kind of decided is that there's no board questions on credentialing, billing, practice management, and therefore it's not necessarily a top priority at the optometry school. They need to get you to pass your boards first. And so I appreciate the fact that you know, they don't spend a lot of time teaching you these things that are absolutely necessary once you start practice. If you are not credentialing with insurances, your chances are you're going to have issues with cash flow, because so many patients, as I showed earlier, have insurance today that those very few and far between practices that are cash only practices are rare, and not all of us are going to be able to do a cash only practice. So we're getting to the end here. A couple things that I would suggest when you start your medical billing model of practice is, when you transition to medical billing, is evaluate your fee schedule. Like we talked before, looking at the Medicare allowables is a good starting place. Make sure you treat everything your license allows, charge for every procedure you do, invest in new technology. An inexpensive way to get started is a dry eye clinic. A retinal camera is absolutely a no-brainer. You cannot lose money on a retinal camera in an optometric practice. So with all of these procedures that are available to you, you got to find your comfort level. And there's always new procedures coming to our profession. Things like amniotic membranes. That's something that has been new to optometric practices here in the last 2 or 3 years. Anybody can do amniotic membranes, but you have to find your comfort level with them. You have to learn how to use them. And then most importantly, you have to learn how to bill for it so you can get reimbursed. So once again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at drvision@claimdoctor.net. If you are interested in a copy of the slides here, of the PowerPoint, I'll be happy to send that to you as well. If you want a copy of your Medicare allowables, like I said, I need I'll need your zip code, but we can get that for you as well. And if you just have general questions, feel free to reach out to me. If not right now, you can email me at a later date.
All right. Thanks for providing all this information for our viewers here. And I know we got a couple of questions that trickled in. So just looking for a clarification. CAQH, you apply for CAQH. First, you get your MPI number, then you apply for your CAQH, and then it's after you register with CAQH that you start to apply for insurance panels. Is that correct?
So that's reversed. So
Okay.
the CAQH, you actually have to submit an application to a commercial carrier before you can start the CAQH application process.
And does it matter which commercial carrier you submit to first? That was the question.
It does not. You know, it really depends on where you're located, as far as where to start. Now, there's different ways that I can tell you how to decide what carriers you would want to look at. Number one, look at the major employers in your community and see what insurance they are using. Keep in mind that unfortunately they can change. Typically January 1st of each year, they could change. So just because you're on the right panel this year doesn't mean that next year they're going to have the same carrier. So you need to be flexible and ready to get on whatever panel is available to you to be on, if that's where your patients have insurance. The other thing you can do is you know, if you can't contact employers, you can use your competition to find out what carriers are in your community. You can go to the website of the other optometrists in whatever town you're going to practice, because you'd be surprised at how many doctors list all the insurances that they are a provider for on their website. And so you can go and get an idea there as well as to which insurances to be a provider for. I think Medicare is a no-brainer in all 50 states. I think Medicaid, and the reason I say that about Medicare is because Medicare is the most non-discriminatory against optometrists. Any optometrist can get on Medicare in any of the 50 states. There's no limit to the number of doctors, whereas other insurance panels can limit the number of doctors in any given geographical area. And so you might find that it's more difficult to get on some of the carriers. For example, Florida is notoriously difficult to get on Blue Cross Blue Shield. Unless you're joining a practice that is already a provider, it's very difficult as a new doctor to come out of school in a solo practice and become a Blue Cross Blue Shield provider in Florida. California has some limitations as well, because they have a lot of HMOs that will discriminate against optometrists. But in most states, it really is not difficult to get in on a lot of the carriers like Blue Cross Blue Shield and Cigna, Aetna, some of the major carriers. And realize in every state there's going to be regional carriers. Like here in Illinois where I practice, there's Health Alliance, which probably isn't in very many other states. So you know, there's lots of different insurances out there that you can participate with.
Great. I know we've got just a couple more questions. One, we'll go with this one because it sounds like it's more credentialing. The other one might be more of a billing question. But so the question is, for Medicare and Medicaid, once you get your provider ID, is that something that is transferable between states? So I guess if you're going to move to another state to practice, does that go with you, or do you have to reapply?
So it does not go with you from state to state, because most states have different carriers. There, you know, for example, Illinois has NGS, and Iowa has WPS. So even though, and I have practices in both Iowa and Illinois, I have to apply to be a provider in Illinois, and I have to apply to be a provider in Iowa, and those are two total different applications and two total different provider numbers, because they're actually with two different insurance carriers. Medicaid is state by state. Medicare, the rules and policies for Medicaid vary from state to state, so there's no reciprocity between states for either Medicare or Medicaid. And to be honest with you, there isn't for Blue Cross Blue Shield either. There's 50 different carriers for 50 different states for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now with Medicare, there's, I believe, 13 or 15 carriers, and so some of the carriers will have 3 or 4 states. Some of them have even more than that. But when you're in different states, I still think, even if it's the same carrier, I suspect you probably would have to potentially fill out 2 different applications.
Got it. Here's another question. It looks like it's in regards to Tier Lab. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, but is a Tier Lab using that test and dry eye evaluations, are they reimbursed from insurance, or is a patient paying out of pocket for those?
So Tier Lab is typically paid for by insurance panels. I submit them to insurance panels every day, all day long, and it reimburses typically more than what it costs. Typically costs me about $10 per eye per test, and Medicare, for example, reimburses a little less than $23, about $22 and change. So if you're doing both eyes, it's going to cost you about $20 to do the test, and you're going to get reimbursed about $45.
Got it. Here's another question that just came in. It looks like an employer. So here's the question. My employer told me to start the CAQH process before submitting an application to a commercial carrier. I haven't submitted the CAQH application yet. Did I mess up? And if so, what could happen?
Well, they won't let you submit a CAQH application until you have another application submitted. So you can't mess it up. It just can't happen. They just don't. They don't let they won't start the application for a CAQH until you've already submitted another insurance carrier application. So no worries.
Perfect. And I think this is the last one here. This was mentioned a bit ago, but it was in regards to NavinNet. I'm not sure if that's a state-specific thing. I've heard of that here in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what NavinNet is, what it means.
So I think NavinNet is a specific web portal. That's the word I was looking for, where mm-hmm. you can go to and you can get information on Medicare patients. Each of the carriers have a different name for this web portal, and it can actually tell you a lot of good information from what's primary insurance for a patient on Medicare, because a lot mm-hmm. of Medicare patients have Advantage plans now, so sometimes it'll tell you what the primary insurance is. If it's not Medicare, what Advantage plan is their primary insurance. You can check status of claims. You can get a lot of information off of those web portals like NavinNet. So you'll go to your specific carrier for your state, and you'll have to find out what they call their web portal. It'll be on their website, and you can utilize that. You'll have to set yourself up an account with a username and a password, and then you can access a lot of good information on those web portals.
Not a necessity to get credentialed, though, is it?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Well, I think those are the last of the questions, but well, thanks again for joining us tonight. And for all of our viewers, if you guys have any more questions or need any more help, be sure to check out Optometric Billing Consultants, www.claimdoctor.net. I know Dr. Botts had left his email address there and on the slide deck that you probably saw, so you can feel free to contact him or his partner Kenny Meyer at KMEYER@claimdoctor.net for any questions or help or for copies of the slides. So thanks again, and have a good night.
Thanks, Antonio.